Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Monday, January the 6th, 2025. Today is the Feast of the Epiphany in Christianity. I am Bishop Darrell Watkins, the senior minister here at Sunshine Cathedral, and with me today is Sunshine Cathedral's executive minister. He's also my husband, the Bishop Robert Griffin, and Sunshine Cathedral's Minister of Connections, the Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell. Visit sunshinecathedral.org to learn more about our progressive faith community and how you can be a part of it, no matter where you live in the world. And if you live in South Florida, be sure to check out the Sunshine Cathedral Center for the Performing Arts, offering entertainment for the LGBTQ+ community to benefit the LGBTQ+ community. And if you enjoy the Queer God Squad, please share this or other episodes with your friends, family, and social media communities. At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you are God's miracle, not God's mistake. This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. The queerness of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Quote, do you think I chose to be like this? Do you have any idea how lonely it is, how dangerous? I would love to be upstairs watching TV or gossiping about boys or, God, even studying. But I have to save the world. Again, end quote. Those words come to us from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of the smartest television series ever in the history of television. Action, pop culture, occult thrills, philosophy, wit, humor. It was complex and thoughtful, and I watched it with religious devotion. First, Buffy was a 1992 teen flick, which despite featuring the then popular Luke Perry, the seasoned Donald Sutherland, Hilary Swank, and the comic genius Paul Reubens, better known as Pee-wee Herman, it turned out to be rather terrible. But the same writer, Joss Whedon, tried again with a television series that ran 7 years over 2 networks, first the WB and then UPN. And this time, from the straw of the cringy film, Whedon spun pure gold. Buffy was special. She was born different from other people, but she didn't discover who she really was and what it meant until she was in her teens. She came to realize that her difference was powerful, and the world was actually better because she embraced her truth. Some were afraid of her difference, others hated her for it. She often felt the need to hide her gifts from those who might not understand. And because she was different, she often felt lonely, misunderstood, and unappreciated. Buffy was a queer character. She wasn't lesbian, though there were lesbians in her entourage, but she was queer. She was different, and her difference made her special but also targeted. She was different by society standards and judged to be dangerous because of her difference. Her friends were also queer. She fell in love with a vampire. How queer is that? And then she had an affair with another vampire who she didn't really like very much, but he fell in love with her. What kind of a soap opera is that they had going on? Her friends were a watcher, which is sort of a wizard scholar, a couple of lesbian witches, a werewolf, who was the ex-boyfriend of one of the lesbian witches, and a non-corporeal energy field who was given human form and became her mystically adopted sister. Buffy was strong and courageous and smart and funny, and she would befriend all kinds of people. She was an embodiment of what being queer is, what a gift being queer is. She didn't choose what she was, but she did embrace it and lived it with integrity. And the world was better for it, even though the world didn't always know it. Every queer identified person could see their life reflected in Buffy's, and the life they saw was one of power and dignity and accomplishment. We need another Buffy. Or maybe we need to remember that Buffy was simply reminding us of our own magical truth. It might be time for a Buffy binge, or in my case, for another Buffy binge. I love the last episode. I wept like a jilted lover. Oh my gosh, I was so sad the last episode. And there were conferences. I had a book called The Philosophy of Buffy. There were Buffy academic conferences. There was a book called The 100 Greatest People Who Never Existed. Buffy was about number 54, like right in the middle of the best people who never existed. She became sort of a myth in our own time, the way that I think Star Trek has become. She was a myth, and a myth, of course, is a story that communicates a truth. The story may not be factual, but it communicates truth, and the truth of queerness and its specialness and its empowerment and its goodness was the truth of Buffy. There was also complex. Everything was complex. There were monsters who were good, who were sweet, who were kind, who were generous. And then there were people who weren't monsters who behaved monstrously. There were people who were one way and then they changed, and then they changed again. The sweet girl who had a crush on her lifelong buddy, who then discovered she was really lesbian and then fell in love with a woman, and then the woman died, so then she became so embittered and cruel even, and then she is redeemed and gets back to her natural, loving, normal self. Like a person, like a life, finding, discovering, changing. So it really was just magical and marvelous. And I think if you weren't turned on by religion, this could have been a pretty good substitute. In fact, she made it into my doctoral thesis as a Christ figure. She even had a resurrection. In fact, twice she was resurrected in the story. So she had a powerful impact on me and on my ministry and even on some of my academic work. So I'm a big fan of Buffy, and I'm a big fan of anything that is easily and positively queered.
Well, Buffy is one of those, I grew up with Buffy also. Who didn't grow up with Buffy and who didn't have to sit by and and watch the binge happen. It sounds like another binge is coming, but we'll see. But I think Buffy, the show of Buffy, really, if I think about almost like a cult movie, there was a Rocky Horror Picture Show, there was Torchstone Trilogy for some of us, there was Buffy, Dawson Creek for the younger folks, and all that stuff that came on. But Buffy was kind of unique in her own time. When you look back at it, she was the other. The whole show was the other, because it wasn't just about witches and vampires and demons and all the ills and wrong they're doing. There really was a plot line of there's good to be had and we ought to have it. And Buffy was kind of the way shower, if you will, Buffy the way shower to how we get to this goodness of stuff that's out there in life. I mean, of all the things that Buffy ever did, I think that just her being Buffy, the queer Buffy, if Buffy was queer, Buffy would be queer. If there was a queer Buffy, she was the light that opened up so many pathways for so many people to discover who they were and also find themselves in their own magic and their own life, even if they were demons or angels or whatever, or spirits. She just kind of was the center of it all. It's kind of like old Mother Hubbard in her house. Everything kind of centered around Buffy, but yet Buffy gave it back out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've never seen Buffy. I never have. I mean, yes, I have.
A knife in my heart.
I'm sorry. We've known each other for years, and I've never seen Buffy. I'm an out lesbian. I've never seen Buffy. What I will say is, obviously, there is a cult following to this show. There are other TV shows that are out there that are really important to people, where people can find themselves in the storylines of these shows. And I think right now, with everything that is kind of happening, the change of administration, all kinds of things that are happening here in the United States, it's really, really important to find those shows, to find those things that are really important to you, that fill you with joy. If you want to do a Buffy binge, do a Buffy binge. I would highly encourage it. And if you're not a Buffy person, find what works for you, because the stuff is out there. We need that kind of stuff right now. The feel good, the reminders that even others can be there and be supportive as well.
There was another, now this was sort of incidental, but the movie, which was quite terrible, was about her discovering who she is and calamity, and she burns the high school down, saving the world, but fighting the vampire, she burns it, and because she's burned the school, she's expelled. So anyway, and then the movie's in. Well, so the series wasn't just a retelling, it was a sequel. They pick up, she has to move to this little town where nobody knows her because she's burned down a school. And so it picks up, and in that way, same character, same ethos, but it's another chapter. It's another, and that reminded me then of course, Luke Acts, the Gospel of Luke and the Book of Acts, which is a prequel. Luke is a prequel to Acts, the early church, or Acts is a sequel to Luke, the life of Jesus, and then what spun out of that. I happen to think that Luke wrote one with the other in mind, that it wasn't just decades later, let's go back and do a thing. I think he always knew this story's too big for one volume. And but in any case, I don't think that was the case with Joss Whedon. I think his movie just sucked eggs, and he tried again and got it right, but was brilliant to do it as a sequel instead of as a redo. So yeah, in that way it was even scriptural for me, because it sort of modeled Luke, Acts. If you're just a church person, you may not know that Luke and Acts go together, especially since John is in the middle of them in the canon. But if you're a religion nerd or went to seminary, when I say Luke, Acts, you know what I mean. Mm. And I'm saying that that Buffy is kind of Lucan in that way. Well, that's today for the nerdiest show we've ever done at the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Buffy and Sunday Cathedral is the world's leading progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together.
We all are in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.